Hello, I'm Tracy Schmidt. You know me best as Unstoppable Tracy, host of the Today Show on Bell 5 with the Disability Channel. I am over the moon. We have such an extraordinary guest today. We have the former Lieutenant Governor, David C. Onley. And I am so honored to have the Honorable David Onley with us. So please stay tuned right after these messages.
All about inclusion and really giving everyone a fair say.
Welcome to the Today Show. This is our flagship show. I am Unstoppable Tracy.
I am Zach Damon.
It is a pleasure to be here. I am excited. What is up?
We have a great show today.
Jay Stoyan here for the Disability Channel, the world's only inclusive channel for and by persons with disabilities.
Get ready to be inspired, everyone.
We have people watching from all over the world, but also all over Ontario.
We also take a concerted attention in the veterans community.
In moments of stress and trauma, we can get a hold of ourselves.
To help make a difference for people with disabilities, to show people how to love themselves or their disability.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me, giving this platform for myself and other people with disabilities.
Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this episode of the Disability Channel Detroit. Please tune in next time.
Hello, I'm Tracy Schmidt, Unstoppable Tracy, host of the Today Show, and I am so excited to have dear lifelong friend and humbled to be able to Ontario, David C. Onley. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Tracy. Great to see you again.
Oh, and I'm so excited as well because you were the first person I saw at the first live event after a couple of years with the pandemic shutdown.
Yes, that was at Variety Village, and you were being honored for your multiple involvements in terms of improving the lives of people with disabilities.
Oh.
Hence the name Unstoppable. So it was great to see you.
And you know, it's extra meaningful for me. My hair is standing up on my arm because it's you, and because of that very scary announcement in 2019 with having a tumor. Oh my goodness, David. I was so pleased to see you that day and today.
Thank you. It's a matter of always being aware of what your circumstances are, and if you're developing symptoms, don't just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, it's okay, it'll go away, because if it doesn't go away, you need to get to your doctor and get an assessment. And if you don't feel that your GP is really assessing it, then look farther. And in my particular instance, as most people know, if they've seen me on television for City TV or CP24 or doing my term as Lieutenant Governor, I used long leg braces and a scooter to get around. Well, all of a sudden, I was finding that, I was developing difficulties in getting onto my scooter and off my scooter and onto the car, into the car, which I've been driving since I was a teenager, getting my license in 1969. And so, I wasn't born. Well, the reality is I just felt I was developing difficulties that had not been there for really since I was a teenager in terms of mobility. And so I went to my doctor and rattled off the symptoms that I was experiencing. And he said, well, I think you need to get to a neurologist just to be sure. This was like the summer of 2019. And now, fortunately, and I say it relatively fortunately, my late mother had passed away, but had this phenomenal neurologist at Sunnybrook, Dr. Sandra Black. And during my term as Lieutenant Governor, I had the honor of giving her the Order of Ontario. Now, the thing is that the Order of Ontario, the selection process is not made by the Lieutenant Governor. It's made by a special committee.
Okay.
And so when he said I needed to get to see a neurologist, the immediate person I thought of was Dr. Black. So
Yeah.
long story short, we made contact, and my GP did a referral to her, and she began a series of tests. And my symptoms got worse. My both mobility decreased dramatically. I kept falling. I didn't realize it, but my family was terrified every time I went into the car because they felt I was just not seeing things properly. And so Dr. Black finally said, after going through a whole series of other tests, including CAT scans and things like that, that I needed to have an MRI. So I'd never had one in my life.
Right.
And other than being noisy, there's no pain involved. And so this was on November 3rd of 2019. And when I came out of the MRI at Sunnybrook, I fully expecting to see Dr. Black. Instead, the MRI technician was there, and I thought this person was going to say, well, we'll schedule another appointment, or Dr. Black will schedule another appointment. Instead, the technician said, your doctor says you need to get to emergency immediately.
Oh.
Right there, I knew something was wrong.
Oh my goodness.
To say the very least. And so, at Sunnybrook, the MRI is only like maybe 200 feet from emergency and vice versa. So I was rolled down the hall and had no perception as to what was going to be coming next.
No.
When I got into emergency, she was waiting for us, and she said, we've discovered a tumor the size of an orange on your right frontal lobe.
Orange.
Yes, an orange. And I, like, you would think at that point you'd be terrified, but I actually wasn't, because I just thought, oh, thankfully we have an accurate diagnosis.
Yes.
Said we need to get it out immediately. And okay, that gave me a few little shivers, to say the least.
No kidding.
But she said, we're afraid if you even sneeze, the bottom of your brain will drop out. And
whoa.
Yeah, that got my attention too. So at that point, they gave me a really heavy sedative, and just so I would be so relaxed I wouldn't sneeze. And so I honestly don't remember anything else after that. I don't remember saying goodbye to my wife, Ruth Ann. I don't remember being settled into the room where I stayed overnight. All I remember was going into the room that was just outside of the operating room the next morning.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a funny story at that point, because the anesthetists have to give you a document to sign before you go in for any surgery.
Oh.
And I just said to this guy, who was a French Canadian, I said, so I take it this is the document you want me to sign, that in case anything goes wrong, my family can't sue the hospital. And he's kind of a grim, like that,
He's like, oh, and who you are too,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Somebody with a lot of visibility.
Well, I just knew that I had to sign the document. What was I going to do?
Yeah.
Say no and wait for the sedation to move off. And so I signed the document, and he had this little binder, and I've got a little book right here by Ray Ortland, and I'll just hold it up. I mean, it was a little book like about this size, except it was a binder.
Yeah.
And he flipped it open, and he said, now we are here today to remove the growth from your spine. And I just went, no. We are here to remove the tumor from my right frontal lobe. And the thing is, I wasn't scared or anything like that, because I knew that the surgeon doing the operation was the best there is in Canada.
Yeah.
And so when I said that to him, I said, no, it's the right frontal lobe.
Yeah.
He flipped it to the next page of the binder, and he looked down and then looked at me, and he said, yes, we're here to remove the tumor from your right frontal lobe.
Oh my God.
You were the first surgery of the day, not the second. And I went, yes. And the crazy thing was, I was not the least bit worried because Dr. DaCosta, who did the brain surgery, I knew that he would not roll me over and look for anything on my because he's a brain specialist.
Yes.
So that's what we did. And I
Oh my
went in. Of
gosh.
course, you don't remember a thing after that. They just put
No.
and I came to in the room. So, and the first thing I did was tell my family the story about the anesthetist.
Right.
So, the people at Sunnybrook are fantastic. I spent a
Yes.
week in hospital, and then they sent me home, and that was that. So I've been in the process of recovery with some notable ups and downs since 2019, but mostly ups. And that's the way heavy duty brain surgery works. But the bottom line really is for anyone who's experiencing headaches and double vision. And I had a preliminary symptom that I should have gone to the doctor about because my eye specialist told me, and this is only about 6 months ago when I told him of this earlier symptom, and that was it was like a prelude to worse things. When I kind of leaned back watching the TV, and there's kind of like strobe lights going on, and I couldn't say anything. And what he said was that I was actually having a minor stroke. And I should have said something to my family that as soon as and it only lasted like about maybe 15 seconds, if that.
So that's why you discounted it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that was, as they say, dumb. I should have just said, to Ruth, I said, Ruth, I've just gone through this. And so in any event, that was the most preliminary one. But if you're experiencing, balance problems, if you're experiencing difficulties in terms of anything else, vision, or if you're experiencing any like the strobing lights that I experienced, get to your doctor. If it's worse than that, get to emergency. If you happen to have a neurologist, call a neurologist or have the family call the neurologist and get to hospital.
Well, David, our listeners are so lucky that you were willing to vulnerably share your story.
Yeah.
And I have and you're a huge advocate. And it almost seems to me like now that the horrific title of former, we were joking earlier, but now that you're past lieutenant governor, you can almost be a bigger advocate and a stronger voice in many ways now because you're yourself again. And so I am going to beg our listeners, please stay tuned because I know that David has an interesting story about space and how he got into the industry with City TV. And I know that now he's also got many things that he's a huge stand for, quite powerfully out there. If you watch his LinkedIn feed, even you can see how strong some of his language is. And so I want to give some airtime to more of your incredible causes, like get early detection. Don't ignore small signals. So please stay tuned, everybody. I have the Honorable former Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, David C. Onley, and I am Tracy Schmidt, Unstoppable Tracy, on the Today Show here on Bell 5, the Disability Channel. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dave Stevens for the Disability Channel.
An inability to break out. I'm sitting by the door on the second floor, losing my 7-year war. It's not an illusion, so why the exclusion?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's about you. So,
you say you're a disability dynamo.
Joining me and welcome to this beautiful Travelers Championship.
I only want one accolade from you.
So my story is unique, it's amazing, but it's not anything that you guys don't have inside of you. I'm not a hero, I'm not anybody special, I'm just this guy without legs that went out, and I just did it.
Stats outweigh the Democrats, the diplomats, and the bureaucrats.
This is probably your first interview down on the ground on your butt and stuff like
First
that?
time ever,
All
baby.
right.
Eliminate, invalidate, invalidate, invalidate.
Stay with us and the Disability Channel.
Welcome to the Today Show. If you're just joining us now, I'm Tracy Schmidt, host of the Today Show, Unstoppable Tracy, with the extraordinary, massive difference maker, total mentor for me lifelong since the March of Dimes Day, when you used to be an ambassador for them for March of Dimes before you were lieutenant governor. But now you've also go way back to being a superstar TV host on City TV. So I wonder, David, would you share a little bit about how you fell into that role way back when? It's kind of the prelude moment of truth to where you are today.
Well, it's very true. And I guess in a thumbnail sketch, I always wanted to be in broadcasting. The reality was that I'd done well in speaking competitions in elementary school. I think the first elementary school competition I was a part of was in grade 3 when I talked about my massive train set in my basement. So I talked about that. And then I entered speaking competitions through high school and won a couple of them. I was always interested in politics. And so I was aware of the power of the voice and the power of speeches. But it wasn't really until I finished university, where I was elected student council president at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. Back then it was called Scarborough College.
Right.
But it was part of the U of T campus, U of T complex, if you will. And so having finished university, I did a year of law school. And I say a year of law school because it was 48 hours after I began attending classes that I realized this was not for me. But I tried so hard to get in that I thought, I can't quit. I just have to tough it out, which in some instances, toughing it out is a good thing.
Yeah.
But in other ways, it's not. I mean, if it's a career path, as my late father used to say, if you don't want to get up to and get going to work every morning, you got to change. It's just not for you.
Wow.
People are often called the golden handcuffs. And a late friend of mine who became a CA, he had golden handcuffs because he was very good at what he did. He made a lot of money at it, but he didn't like the job, didn't like it at all. And so he was trapped in it. And I refused to be trapped in it. And so when I came back from University of Windsor, who were very helpful to me. In fact, they wanted me to stay on for a second term.
I bet.
Year. I just felt I had to move on to something else. And so, long story short, I had always had a fascination with the space program.
Yes.
And I wrote a best-selling book called Shuttle, just as the space shuttle program was starting.
Right.
And it was like the night before, 2 nights before the launch of the first space shuttle in 1981, April 1981, that I got a call from a producer at CTV saying, would I like to come on the air the next morning to be co-host with Lloyd Robertson? Yes.
Lloyd Robertson!
Yeah, absolutely. The ultimate anchor of our time.
We all know his name, right?
Math on that one. I'm still kind of in a state of shock about it.
Don't talk about
it. And that began a process over the next several years. My book had been written. That's how I got my, they became aware of who I was and what I'd done. And that began a process over the next 3 years where I made multiple appearances on CTV and both their morning show, Canada AM, and then special news events for the launch of the space shuttle until it became routine, to be perfectly frank.
They had to keep you every day.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, I'd met Ruth. I proposed. We got married. First son was on the way, and I had to get a somewhat stable job, to say the least.
Diapers are expensive.
Yes. So I applied for and got a job at CKO Radio. Now, you have to be old to remember CKO Radio in Canada. It was the first attempt at having a nationwide radio network.
Okay.
And it just didn't work. There are a whole variety of reasons. There are a lot of very good and talented people that work there, but it just didn't work for a variety of technical reasons. But somewhere along the way, in the first 14 months that I was there, Moses Neimer saw me at an event where I was the host. It was at the Science Center, and it was, I think it was 1980, just the early part of 1984. So I'd been there less than 2 years at CKO. And I was the MC for the event, which was the presentation by two astronauts, a shuttle astronaut and a Canadian astronaut. And back in those days, that was a big deal.
Yes.
At the Science Center, the auditorium was completely filled. And it was because people were just fascinated by it. Moses Neimer was in the audience. And what I didn't know, and again, this is early in 1984, this was like February, I believe, 84. He just came down, introduced himself, and I don't remember my response, but I was fumble-mouthed at that point, to be very honest, nervous meeting this guy because of his track record with City TV. And so what I didn't realize at that moment was that he had made up his mind to hire me, but they didn't have an opening. And I say this in multiple speeches I've said over the years, especially to young people, like, don't pack it in just because you don't get an immediate response. And I know for sure you've had the same experience, just keep pressing on. And so I got the position I had the position at CKO. I didn't enjoy it at all. It was a very, very difficult position, but I had no alternative as I was keeping body and soul together, supporting my young family. Until I got a phone call on a late Friday night in November of 84. And the private secretary to Moses, her name is Lindsay Gold, she called me at about 4:30, 4:45 on a Friday night. And her question was, she introduced herself and she said, Moses would like to see you. And I went, oh, okay, it'll be sometime next week. And I said, well, when would he like to see me? And she said, as soon as you can leave. She said, I'd like to see you today. And I just thought, well, who arranges a meeting, cold call at 4:45 on a Friday afternoon? Well, the answer is Moses Neimer.
The infamous Moses, when you're that big and famous, and he knew it was a great opportunity for you too.
Yes, exactly. And so I just thought, well, okay, I'll go over and meet him. So it was 4:45, and I just said to my boss, I said, you know what, I've just got an important call. I have to leave a little bit early. And he said, yeah, sure, go. And so I got over to City TV and waited briefly outside his office. And he didn't have a traditional door. He had the beads hanging down, like from Mardi Gras in the States.
How fun!
Everything, that he was talking about. And, at that point, I just thought, well, I wonder how long I'm going to be here. And all of a sudden, he kind of emerged through behind this curtain of, 5.5 or 6 feet long beads.
Yes.
And he said, come on in. And so I came through the doorway and looked around his office, and it was very eclectic, if I can boil that down. And he just looked at me and he said, our weatherman has left us. And I just thought immediately I thought, I'm about to be offered the position of weatherman. And then he said, so what do you think about during the weather? And I just thought, oh man, sure, I'll take it,
Yes.
And so that's how I got in the door.
Oh my gosh. And, we know that he's this innovative, creative soul, and look at his face reflects that.
Yes.
And you didn't love the radio world, but putting you in broadcasting and toning those skills, they probably really set you up for success.
Definitely.
Being flexible for weatherman got to eventually move you into a more relevant role and more opportunity to advocate and be a voice in like political type of efforts in soft ways, right? You could focus on stories that make a difference, and you did. And then here you are, and Ann Romer now, years of working together, and then getting to be this incredible lieutenant governor, and we haven't even talked about that. And I don't want to go to a break. So listeners, please stay tuned. We need to, I'm going to ask David a highlight from his career, his 8 years, I believe, as lieutenant governor of Ontario.
Seven, but that's okay.
7 years, leading up and handing off. We got to include those two. And I'm cheekily stretching.
All right.
7 years. And so it makes me think of the movie 7 Years of Tibet with Brad Pitt.
Yes.
And you were the Brad Pitt of the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario.
High honor, to say the least.
Yes, well, and you're all slim now in that handsome shirt today.
I picked this shirt, by the way.
It all.
Not a commercial, but I picked this at the Bay 2 summers ago, and so I just thought it was kind of flashy, and my grandkids like it. So
I love it. And this spring day.
Yeah.
So listeners, please stay tuned to the Today Show. We will be right back with the Honorable former Lieutenant Governor David C. Onley, and we're going to hear a highlight from his 7 years, and I'd love for him to also share what it is that he can advocate and be a stronger voice about now that he has former in his title, and what he would like to share with all of us listeners before the show is over. So please stay tuned right after these messages with Unstoppable Tracy and Lieutenant Governor David Onley. Be right back.
Hi, I'm Casey McKay, and be sure to watch Press Box on the Disability Channel. It's some great stuff we're covering, so be sure to tune in. Again, I'm Casey McKay, reporting for the Disability Channel, and I'll see you soon.
Hi, this is Rocky Blyer, and you're watching the Disability Channel showcasing abilities.
Hello, I am Tracy Schmidt, better known as Unstoppable Tracy. If you're just joining the Today Show now on the Disability Channel, Bell 5, you may have noticed I have a super famous, extraordinary dignitary with us today, the former Lieutenant Governor, David C. Onley. You may know him from City TV days. Most of us know him now, most recently, for his 7 years of Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. And he's still a huge, massive, impacting public influencer in the world of Ontario for many reasons, not just in the world of people with disabilities and seniors, but that's certainly how many of us know him best. So welcome back, David. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
David, did anything come to mind when I was doing your introductions about your 7 years that you'd like to share with us in your role as Lieutenant Governor of Ontario?
Yes, actually, I thought about it during the break as well. And I came into office in my installation address in September of 2007. Talking about disability and talking about accessibility and how during my term of office that I would be promoting it. Each lieutenant governor in the recent times, basically for the last 60 years or thereabouts, has had not only the responsibilities of being the Queen's representative, but doing advocacy for a particular project. And John Black-Aird, going back 40 plus years, was the first one to make what he called then, and what the term was correct, disability rights, as his focus during term of office, other than representing the Queen. And it moved through those time frames to the next Lieutenant Governor, Lincoln Alexander, the first Black Canadian to be a Lieutenant Governor and the first Black Canadian to be a cabinet minister on the federal level. And so he had the theme of racial rights, racial harmony for his 5 years in office. And, you know, we moved forward into time, and Hillary Weston was on volunteerism, and James Bartleman, my immediate predecessor, being partial Indigenous person, he had a lot of programs related to education for Indigenous students, where there were significant barriers to them to get the kind of education they needed then and need today.
Yeah.
So I felt no qualms at all of making accessibility the main theme of my term of office. So there were multiple events that I did related to that theme. And once different organizations were aware of that, then I started to get invitations to their events. And, you know, so clearly that was my focus. What I remember, though, were a couple of events related to Her Majesty the Queen. I mean, first of all, each Lieutenant Governor in their first year of office typically go to Buckingham Palace and meet the Queen. And
really?
Yes, that's, you know, part of the deal, if you will. So Ruth and I went over, and I mean, it was just a phenomenal experience. Exactly, just blow your mind. And so we went in, and I mean, there are many, many guests that she meets, and the people immediately preceding us were dignitaries from Germany, who the new ambassador from Germany, who were presenting their credentials. And just before we went in, it was like where we were seated was about 40 feet from the opening to her office. And one of the ladies in waiting came over and just sort of gave us a few housekeeping details. And then the aide-de-camp, who was a military person, introduced himself. And we're just waiting for the meeting to end from the ambassador. And he said, "Now, here's the procedure." And he just basically rattled off the steps. But before he was finished, the doors to the meeting room where the Queen was it opened up, and the ambassador and his assistant walked out. And then the Queen went back into the meeting room, and the doors were closed. And this aide-de-camp, I don't remember his last name, but his first name was Andy. And so as soon as the doors closed, Ruth and I just both looked over at him. I said to him, I said, "Excuse me, Andy," but we were looking at the Queen and the German ambassador, and I said, "I'm sorry, but I don't remember a word you said." Could you please repeat it? And he did. He laughed, like, you know, because I'm sure various people told him that in the preceding years, or at the very least months. And so he went over the details, and he said, "Now the main thing is, don't begin speaking until Her Majesty speaks to you." And I thought, okay, that's pretty simple. And so Ruth and I went through, and she was wearing a beautiful green dress, and some people may have seen that picture. And by the way, there's a camera person who goes click, click, and takes 2 pictures and then leaves the room. And so now I'm, you know, sitting there in my scooter, and I'm waiting for the Queen to speak. And Ruth notices the beautiful diamond maple leaf brooch that the Queen was wearing. And she just immediately, quote unquote, broke protocol and said, "Oh, Your Majesty, what a beautiful brooch."
Oops.
I just kind of rolled my eyes, and I thought, no. So anyway, Her Majesty just went with it. She said, "Oh, thank you very much." She said, "This was given to my mother during the royal tour of 1939. So it became obvious to me that she had pulled it out when she realized that her personal representative in the province of Ontario was coming that day. And so she did, and we had this wonderful set of exchanges, conversation over the next 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden it was over. And so we left and we were just, floated out of the room on cloud nine. And then we were asked to stay for lunch with the royal household. And I thought, well, we'll be going to a cafeteria somewhere, but no, it was just, she was not there, but all of her aides, and it was just beautiful. The china, the lights, and the tables were set. It was like a most expensive restaurant you've ever been in. So I just want to fast forward, because that was utterly memorable, of course. To her visit when she came to Ontario, and she visited the Lieutenant Governor's suite, which had never happened with a sitting monarch. And so I was to show her around the suite with a number of guests who truly, desperately wanted to be there. On my scooter, and as you know, those things can go very quickly. So I dialed down the speed to just a crawl.
To turtle.
To turtle. And as I was rolling it forward, I was introducing Her Majesty to a number of different people. But what was going on in my mind was, don't hit the Queen. Don't hit the Queen. I thought, don't lose control. So anyway, I didn't hit the Queen. And
thank goodness.
We went through, and that was that. So those definitely those events were the two major events that I remember.
Wow. Oh my gosh, David, we could do a whole other show. I can't believe that our time is coming to a close.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to come back.
Wow. Well, I'm going to take you up on that, David. That's so thoughtful of you.
Very good.
I know that I would be remiss, even though I'm running a little over with the show. But you have so many things that you are being a voice for, from 3 years old about your train set.
Yes.
Now with influence, you're not taking that lightly, and no one would judge you. No one would think that there was an excuse if you decided to dial things back after having a tumor the size of an orange removed from your brain.
Yeah.
But in fact, your voice as present and advocating as ever, and in some ways even a bigger difference, because you can be more transparent.
Yes.
And so, what would you like to close out with, or shout out with, or share with our listeners? Because I promised you that opportunity, and I've been so busy regaling about the past that we haven't talked about today or the future.
Yes. Well, I would say that, whatever your situation, if you have a person with a disability in your family, or if you yourself has a disability, to use your voice wherever you are. And, my situation, having been on television and then as Lieutenant Governor, has put me in a unique set of opportunities that most people, frankly, don't get. Yeah. But you just, talk and advocate where you're planted. You've done that in a unique way over the years, and have overcome your adversity as I've overcome mine. That doesn't mean that we don't have bad days. We do have bad days, and people that I know with disabilities have bad days, but mostly have good days. And use your opportunities wherever you are and help make a difference. And, we're in a strange time where, there's an election on right now in Ontario. There'll be a federal election, and use your opportunities there to speak out. Join different organizations, that are advocating for people with disabilities. Don't sit back. Don't wait. Speak out and use the internet. Use Twitter. Some of the best comments that I've received that I have then quoted in speeches that I've given, or I've used in the class that I teach on the politics of disability at the U of T Scarborough.
Currently,
it comes from places like that. It comes from LinkedIn. It comes from Twitter. It comes from all the different social media platforms. And so use them. Just use them as the best you possibly can. It'll make a difference.
It does. It does. It was your recent advocacy that had me reach out and say, will you be on the show?
Yes. Yeah.
And you know, and I had no idea if he would say yes, even though we have this, you know, other connection lifelong. You have hundreds of thousands of connections of people that feel close to you, and yet, you know, you know so many because of your life. So
indeed.
Thank you for saying yes.
You're very, very welcome. I look forward to talking with you again.
Yes, and you have an open invitation. If you ever need a platform to please say, Tracy, I have a new mission. I need to be on the show.
Okay. I'll take
I
you
will
up on it.
always invite you. Absolutely. And we're very grateful. Please find David on LinkedIn, find David on Twitter, find him on Facebook, and like his message, share his chat messages, comment on his messages so that we expand the reach. And also, you know, he's been a speaker since 3 years old, and he has now got a little bit more experience under his belt, even with the green. So hire him, bring him to your platforms so that he can blow our minds today, and he will blow the minds of your audiences in the future. And you know, where's the best place people can find you, David? Where do you want to drive people to find you and reach you?
Well, to find me, the easiest thing, not taking much more time, but is my email address at the University of Toronto. I'll just repeat it now, but you can just Google my address or go to David Onley at Twitter or Facebook. I'm there on both platforms. And but the email address is the quickest one, david.onley@utoronto.ca. But you can look that up on University of Toronto Scarborough website and just go from there.
And we'll also publicize that here on the Disability Channel, on our website, on YouTube, on Bell 5, and running across the screen.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you, listeners, for this extraordinary show. I feel starstruck, and I'm so glad I got to share that with all of you listening on the Today Show here in Toronto, on the Disability Channel, on Bell 5, and lots of social platforms. Please reach out to the Disability Channel, showcasing abilities with the Honorable former Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, David C. Onley. Many positive thoughts your way.
Thank you.